the place for comic book and anime reviews.
Hey there, you guys. I'm at Brandon Campbell 12 YouTube channel. Here are comic book anime reviews. And here's my review for Champions, issue number 1. Legacy numbering, issue number 38, which is obviously picked up from the last Champions issues. So, you got 2 covers right here. Bought 2 copies, the regular cover and the variant cover. So, no legacy numbering, issue number 38, which is obviously picked up from the last Champions issues. So, you got 2 covers right here. Bought 2 copies, the regular cover and the variant cover. So, so this week a lot of the Marvel comics have the Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman tribute on them. These ones did not. I think it's because these are new series, and I also have some other theories about these books, which I'm going to get into when I, talk about them. So let's do that, shall we? So with this issue of Champions, we pretty much start off with getting this monologue about the youth. And this really goes back to what Eva Ewing said about, her take on young people and, how we put a lot of responsibility in the youth of today. But at the same time, we also hold them back. We still don't let them go as far. We have them make their own choices. We have them take responsibility for those choices, but we don't let them go as far as, others do. And that was the book we're going to deal with. And that was monologue pretty much tells me right here. It pretty much is telling us, what it's like to be a young person in America today. This book also kind of hits differently now a little bit. I'm going to kind of get into that as the story goes along. But there are definitely some implications of today's world that can definitely be put inside Champions, not like in a direct way, but kind of like in this weird indirect way with, how we, deal with political issues in our world today. So we see Miles, he's going to his school day, and we get this person who looks a lot like Moon Girl to me. Like, I legitimately thought this was Moon Girl, but we find the series goes on that this is not actually Moon Girl, which I thought was a little bit weird. Especially right here in this sequence when she runs out of the room. Like, it looks exactly like Moon Girl. But her name is actually known as Jamilah. So, again, that was a little bit weird to me. Like, just the way, especially since Moon Girl actually is in this issue, and a lot of her same talking points of Jamilah also go back to what Moon Girl says. So I'm not sure if there was a changeover or if this was originally meant to be Moon Girl, but they changed it last minute. So there are definitely issues I have with this book, and I'm definitely going to go into that. These issues are also compounded by the Miss Marvel issue that came up this week, which I'm also going to talk about. They're basically have very similar issues going on within them. So we're going to talk about that. But we see earlier that everyone's getting ready for, this school thing, this whole big thing that Kamala's going to give a speech. Everyone knows it's about to happen. And we see some kids with this Champions logo on their shirts. And I'm not sure if, I forget if Miles' school is a public school or a private school. I kind of want to go in depth a little bit on this because, depending on, because I don't think small schools has, uniforms. I think that's pretty clear that none of the kids are wearing any sort of uniform at this school. So technically they should be allowed, if this is not a private school, to wear generally whatever they would like. It goes back to a little story that we have heard in the news quite recently where a person was wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt and they were, kicked out of the school for it. And we found out that school was a private school. And, private schools have a certain expectation of them. And they have their own like rules and regulations that they can keep strong and keep forth in their school and in their policy. And it was one of those things where like I'm not exactly sure if you knew about this or if because this wasn't created when that happened. Obviously, this was created way before that. We found in this book there's actually our Empire ads in this book. Empire, which is obviously over. So this book was already created before the whole pandemic, and they just gave us this book without editing it or changing it or making any like significant doing any significant differently to this book, and just kind of released it as it is, which is kind of an issue to me. I'm not sure if Evel Ewing was very busy, if they couldn't really get her back in to do some rewrites or anything like that. But the ad, I feel like, could have easily been removed. Like that was one thing I thought, like, okay, the Empire is over. You could have removed this ad. It wouldn't have been that hard to do before. So there were things like that happened within it. But anyway, we see that Kamala does make a big speech, and it's kind of surprising everyone, especially the champion, because she made this speech without talking to any of them, and this becomes a big problem, especially for Jamilah, who is like, hey, I don't like this policy that you guys got going on here. And even Miles brings up like, Kamala just made the decision that we're all going to keep doing hero stuff without talking to any of the other champions in this book. And Miles like, that seems to be like, that seems to be kind of shocking for Kamala to do. Like, Kamala would never do that. Or Miss Marvel will never do that, because they don't know that she's Kamala. That's another thing about this book, too. It's like kind of, we all know the real reason why Kamala is doing this, because obviously she was put in the hospital. She was the reason why this law happened, so she is acting out as a result of that law being put in under her name. And, all that's going to tick her off a bit. But we see that Miles ends up going on this, like, hero spree, and he ends up getting stopped by Cradle, who kind of like bug him, like they say, like, oh, save me. But it actually was Cradle, so it was actually basically a sting operation. Not very smart being from Miles to like think through this, but I get it. I get why Miles would do this. Made the decision that he made. He's still a hero at the end of the day, so I do get that decision, how that decision was made. But we do get to see the champions have a big meeting, and this once again goes back to what I was saying. See, Moon Girl has the same stance as Jamilah does. She seems to be pretty pissed off at Kamala for making this decision before talking to them. And so are the other champions as well, actually. So again, little things like that kind of were a problem. Also, Red Williams is not in this issue at all. I'm going to kind of get into that at the very end, but obviously Evel Ewing also wrote for Ironheart. So it was interesting that she's not going to be leaning on that as a strong suit. She's going to be writing for all of these characters instead, which, I do kind of like. That was definitely one of the more positives for me in this issue. So we get to see all these young heroes kind of getting together before they are stopped by Cradle, who kind of comes in, tries to arrest them. And it ends up working. Like they ended up actually managing to capture some of them, including the Wasp and Bombshell, who ends up getting captured and taken in by Cradle. So Cradle is definitely on the up and up. They're definitely winning so far. We're definitely going to see, how it all turns out in the next future issues. As we get to the very end of the issue and find out that Viv might have something to do with this as well. That Viv may have, put out the hit on the champions to tell them where their location was, and that's pretty much where the issue ends off. So I want to talk about a couple of things with this issue, because I kind of gave some of my gripes with this issue while I was talking about it. There were a few minor gripes that were going on throughout this, like the whole thing with the public schooling thing, Miles' attitude. But another issue I had with this book was, it connected to the Miss Marvel issue, because we know in Miss Marvel, that last issue, she got up and walked out of the hospital to go on next adventure. So, and I was all curious about the fact that, like, okay, the hospital is gonna let her go free, despite all that. So there definitely is some weird things going on between the Miss Marvel creative team and this creative team, and everything's not going to fit together. And I understand there was a pandemic that happened. I'm not sure if the Miss Marvel got some rewrites done to it, but the Champions completely the same, because we see in this issue that Miss Marvel is still in that hospital bed, and she is still recovering, because we know she's probably already been recovered. But technically speaking, you probably shouldn't just leave the hospital room and not expect any problems to come from that. And I think that may have been maybe Eva Ewing's thought process compared to Solomon May's thought process. And it's just those types of, that balance that is kind of taken away from my room, because I'm thinking about these things as I'm reading the book. And of course, we also have to talk about the Viv ending part and Riri not being in this issue, because we know Jim Zub set up Riri and Viv's relationship, and even though that they never really brought into anything really major, they choosing to go some separate ways. That is something that I think either you might end up playing with, especially having Viv be the mole at the very end of the issue and Riri not showing up in this issue. And we see in the cover for the next issue, Riri crying. So I definitely have the theory that there's definitely going to be some, drama between Riri and Viv in the upcoming issue. And I definitely cannot wait to see how it all turns out and how it all plays up together. So, yeah.